Stories and Documentary Network. The Anasazi, often referred to as the Ancient Ones or Ancient Enemies by neighboring indigenous peoples, evoke a sense of fascination and intrigue unparalleled in the annals of North American archaeology. Nestled amidst the dramatic landscapes of the American Southwest, their enigmatic ruins and cultural artifacts stand as silent testaments to a civilization that thrived and vanished in the mists of time. The allure of the Anasazi lies not only in the grandeur of their architectural achievements but also in the mysteries surrounding their origins, societal organization, and ultimate demise. For centuries, scholars, explorers, and indigenous peoples have been drawn to the rugged canyons, mesas, and deserts that once formed the heartland of Anasazi civilization. Their cliff dwellings, perched precariously on sheer canyon walls, hint at a people deeply attuned to the rhythms of the natural world, yet possessing a mastery of architecture and engineering that belies their ancient origins. The intricate pottery, exquisite textiles, and enigmatic rock art left behind by the Anasazi offer tantalizing glimpses into a complex society with rich artistic and spiritual traditions. In the pages that follow, we embark on a journey through time and space, delving into the origins, achievements, and challenges of the Anasazi, and reflecting on their enduring legacy in the contemporary world. From the monumental architecture of Chaco Canyon to the intimate details of daily life in ancient Pueblo villages, we invite readers to join us in unraveling the mysteries of one of North America's most enigmatic civilizations. The origins of the Anasazi civilization trace back to the ancient peoples known as the Basketmakers, who inhabited the American Southwest as early as 2000 before Common Era. Basketmaker societies were characterized by their nomadic lifestyle, subsistence hunting and gathering, and the rudimentary cultivation of domesticated plants such as maize, beans, and squash. Archaeological evidence, including artifacts such as intricately woven baskets, sandals, and pottery, provides glimpses into the material culture and daily lives of these early inhabitants. The Basketmaker period laid the foundation for the subsequent development of Anasazi culture, as communities gradually transitioned from a mobile, hunter-gatherer lifestyle to settled agricultural villages. The transition from the Basketmaker to the Anasazi, also known as the Ancestral Puebloans, marked a significant evolutionary leap in the cultural and social complexity of indigenous societies in the Southwest. Around 500 Common Era, Ancestral Puebloan communities began to construct permanent dwellings, utilizing locally available materials such as sandstone, adobe, and timber to create intricate architectural structures. One of the hallmark achievements of the Ancestral Puebloans was the construction of elaborate cliff dwellings and multi-story pueblos, particularly prominent in regions such as Mesa Verde, Chaco Canyon, and Canyon de Chelly. These architectural marvels not only provided shelter and protection but also served as centers of communal life, where religious ceremonies, trade exchanges, and social gatherings took place. The Ancestral Puebloans also exhibited remarkable skill in agriculture, implementing sophisticated irrigation systems to cultivate crops in arid environments. The introduction of maize cultivation revolutionized subsistence patterns, enabling communities to establish permanent settlements and support growing populations. The dispersion of Ancestral Puebloan communities across the Southwest was influenced by a myriad of environmental, social, and cultural factors. Archaeological research suggests that population growth, resource depletion, and social dynamics may have driven migration patterns, leading to the establishment of new settlements and the expansion of existing communities. One of the most significant migration events in Ancestral Puebloan history occurred during the Pueblo III period, 1150 to 1300 Common Era, characterized by the emergence of large-scale Pueblo villages and the construction of monumental architectural complexes such as Pueblo Bonito in Chaco Canyon. This period witnessed the consolidation of political and religious power, as regional centers exerted influence over surrounding communities through trade networks and cultural exchange. However, the latter part of the Pueblo III period was marked by environmental challenges, including prolonged droughts and agricultural decline, which precipitated the decline and abandonment of many Ancestral Puebloan settlements. The exact reasons for the collapse of Ancestral Puebloan society remain subject to debate, with scholars proposing a combination of environmental stressors, social upheaval, and external pressures as contributing factors. Among the most iconic architectural achievements of the Anasazi are their cliff dwellings, which stand as testament to their ingenuity and adaptability in challenging environments. Nestled within the sheer rock faces of canyons and mesas, these cliff dwellings provided shelter, protection, and a sense of communal identity for Anasazi communities. The construction of cliff dwellings required meticulous planning and engineering skill, as builders worked with the natural contours of the landscape to create dwellings that were both functional and aesthetically striking. Utilizing locally available materials such as sandstone blocks, wooden beams, and adobe mortar, Anasazi builders constructed multi-story dwellings that were often accessible only by ladders or narrow passageways. Examples of notable cliff dwellings include Mesa Verde's Cliff Palace, the largest cliff dwelling in North America, and the intricate structures of Canyon de Chelly and Bandelier National Monument. These architectural marvels reflect the intimate relationship between Anasazi communities and their environment, as inhabitants adapted to the challenges of rugged terrain and limited resources. In addition to cliff dwellings, the Anasazi also constructed sprawling pueblo villages characterized by multi-story adobe structures clustered around central plazas and communal spaces. Pueblo villages served as focal points of social, economic, and religious activity, where extended families and kinship groups lived in close proximity and shared resources. The architecture of Pueblo villages was designed to promote social cohesion and collective identity, with shared living spaces, storage facilities, and ceremonial structures reflecting the interconnectedness of community life. Adobe brick construction, featuring thick walls and flat roofs, provided insulation from the desert heat and cold temperatures, while also offering protection from potential threats. Examples of notable Pueblo villages include Pueblo Bonito in Chaco Canyon, which boasted over 600 rooms spread across multiple stories, and the compact settlements of Mesa Verde, where dwellings were built into alcoves and caves along canyon walls. The layout of Pueblo villages often reflected the hierarchical organization of Anasazi society, with larger, more elaborate structures reserved for elite members of the community. Central to Anasazi religious and ceremonial life were kivas, subterranean chambers used for communal rituals, ceremonies, and spiritual gatherings. Kivas served as sacred spaces where the living could commune with ancestral spirits, seek guidance from deities, and participate in rituals of renewal and transformation. Constructed with circular or rectangular floor plans, kivas were typically accessed by a ladder or a small entranceway leading from the surface. The interior of kivas featured benches, fire pits, and mural paintings depicting religious symbols and mythological motifs. The architecture of kivas reflected the cosmological beliefs of the Anasazi, with the circular form symbolizing the cyclical nature of existence and the interconnectedness of all living beings. Kivas were integral to the social and political organization of Anasazi communities, serving as centers of religious authority and communal governance. Ceremonial activities held within kivas reinforced social bonds, affirmed cultural identity, and mediated relationships between the human and spiritual realms. The socio-political organization of Anasazi society was intricately woven into kinship networks and social hierarchies that governed relationships, resource distribution, and community dynamics. At the heart of Anasazi social structure lay kinship ties, which served as the foundation for familial and communal identities. Extended families, clans, and lineages formed the building blocks of Anasazi communities, with shared ancestry and communal landholding rights shaping patterns of cooperation and reciprocity. Social hierarchies within Anasazi society were often delineated by factors such as lineage, wealth, and prestige, with individuals holding positions of authority based on their ability to navigate complex networks of kinship and community obligations. Elders and spiritual leaders played key roles in mediating disputes, resolving conflicts, and upholding traditional customs and values. Gender roles were also significant in shaping social organization, with men often assuming leadership positions in political and ceremonial spheres, while women played central roles in domestic and economic activities. Leadership and governance within Anasazi communities varied depending on factors such as size, complexity, and environmental conditions. In smaller, decentralized communities, leadership roles were often informal and consensus-based, with respected elders and influential individuals wielding authority through persuasion, negotiation, and consensus building. Decision-making processes were characterized by communal participation and collective decision-making, with decisions guided by traditional customs, oral traditions, and shared cultural values. In larger, more complex communities, such as those found in Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde, centralized forms of leadership and governance emerged, with individuals or families exercising authority over regional trade networks, religious ceremonies, and resource allocation. These leaders, often referred to as chiefs or elites, wielded power through a combination of hereditary privilege, economic control, and religious authority. The great houses of Chaco Canyon, with their monumental architecture and elaborate ceremonial complexes, served as centers of political and religious power, where elite lineages vied for influence and prestige. Trade played a crucial role in Anasazi society, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultural practices across vast networks of intertribal relations. Anasazi communities engaged in long-distance trade with neighboring groups, exchanging commodities such as pottery, turquoise, obsidian, and agricultural products. Trade routes crisscrossed the southwest, linking major population centers such as Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and the Hopi Mesas with outlying communities and distant trading partners. The establishment of trade networks fostered social interaction, cultural exchange, and economic interdependence among diverse groups inhabiting the region. It also contributed to the diffusion of technological innovations, artistic styles, and religious beliefs, enriching the cultural tapestry of Anasazi civilization. Intertribal relations were characterized by both cooperation and competition, with alliances formed through marriage, diplomacy, and shared economic interests, while conflicts over resources, territory, and prestige occasionally led to tensions and rivalries. Pottery occupies a central place in the artistic and cultural legacy of the Anasazi, serving as both a utilitarian vessel and a canvas for aesthetic expression. Anasazi pottery exhibits a remarkable diversity of forms, styles, and techniques, reflecting the unique cultural identities and artistic sensibilities of different regional groups and time periods. Anasazi pottery can be classified into various typologies, including black on white, red on buff, and black on red wares, each distinguished by distinctive decorative motifs, surface treatments, and firing methods. Black on white pottery, characterized by intricate geometric designs and bold black pigments, represents one of the most iconic pottery traditions of the Anasazi, with examples found in archaeological sites throughout the Southwest. Pottery making among the Anasazi was a highly skilled and labor-intensive process, involving the gathering and preparation of clay, the shaping of vessels using coiling or slab building techniques, and the application of slip, paint, and firing. Pottery served a multitude of functions in Anasazi society, including food storage, cooking, ritual offerings, and trade goods, with different vessel forms and designs reflecting specific cultural practices and ceremonial contexts. Petroglyphs and pictographs, engraved and painted images found on rock surfaces, provide invaluable insights into the spiritual beliefs, cosmological worldviews, and social practices of the Anasazi. These visual narratives, etched into the natural landscape of the American Southwest, convey a rich tapestry of mythological motifs, symbolic imagery, and historical events that reflect the interconnectedness of human communities and the natural environment. Petroglyphs, created by pecking or carving images into rock surfaces, often depict scenes of hunting, gathering, ritual ceremonies, and celestial phenomena. Common motifs include animals such as bighorn sheep, deer, and birds, as well as anthropomorphic figures, geometric patterns, and abstract symbols with multiple layers of meaning. Petroglyph sites, such as those found in 9 Mile Canyon, Utah, and Newspaper Rock, Arizona, serve as outdoor galleries of Anasazi artistry, inviting contemplation and interpretation by contemporary viewers. Pictographs, painted using natural pigments derived from minerals, plants, and animal sources, adorn rock shelters, cliffs, and cave walls throughout the Southwest. These vivid compositions range from simple geometric shapes to elaborate scenes depicting hunting expeditions, religious ceremonies, and mythological narratives. The colors and compositions of pictographs, often featuring shades of red, yellow, black, and white, reflect the aesthetic preferences and symbolic associations of Anasazi artists who imbued their creations with spiritual significance and cultural meaning. Interpreting petroglyphs and pictographs requires sensitivity to the cultural context and oral traditions of indigenous peoples, who continue to regard these sacred sites as repositories of ancestral knowledge and spiritual power. Indigenous perspectives on rock art emphasize the interconnectedness of human beings, nature, and the supernatural realm, underscoring the enduring relevance of these ancient visual narratives in contemporary indigenous lifeways. Textiles and adornments played a significant role in Anasazi society, serving as markers of cultural identity, social status, and spiritual significance. Anasazi weavers employed a variety of techniques, including finger weaving, loom weaving, and twining, to create textiles from locally sourced fibers such as cotton, yucca, and animal hair. Anasazi textiles featured intricate patterns, bold colors, and geometric designs that reflected the aesthetic preferences and symbolic meanings of different regional groups. Textile fragments recovered from archaeological sites, such as those found at the Basketmakers site of Turkey Pen Ruin and the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde, provide evidence of sophisticated weaving traditions and textile production methods. Adornments such as shell beads, turquoise pendants, and bone hairpins adorned the attire of Anasazi individuals, serving as personal ornaments and talismans imbued with spiritual significance. These adornments were often crafted using materials obtained through trade networks or from local sources, with specific designs and materials carrying symbolic meanings related to cultural beliefs, social roles, and ceremonial practices. The production of textiles and adornments was a communal endeavor, with skilled artisans passing down knowledge and techniques through generations. Weaving and textile making were integral components of Anasazi culture, with textiles used for clothing, ceremonial regalia, and domestic furnishings. The craftsmanship and artistry of Anasazi textiles and adornments speak to the creativity, resourcefulness, and cultural resilience of indigenous peoples in the Southwest, whose legacies continue to inspire contemporary artisans and scholars alike. The Anasazi were pioneers in agricultural innovation, developing sophisticated techniques for cultivating crops in the arid landscapes of the American Southwest. Maize, or corn, served as a staple crop for Anasazi communities, providing a reliable source of sustenance and supporting population growth and cultural development. Anasazi farmers practiced dryland farming, relying on seasonal precipitation and natural moisture retention to cultivate maize, beans, squash, and other domesticated plants. They also constructed elaborate irrigation systems, including check dams, diversion channels, and terraced fields, to capture and distribute water from rivers, streams, and natural springs to agricultural fields. The cultivation of maize enabled Anasazi communities to establish permanent settlements, support growing populations, and develop complex social and political structures. Agricultural surplus allowed for specialization of labor, with individuals engaging in activities such as pottery making, weaving, and religious leadership, contributing to the cultural diversity and economic vitality of Anasazi society. Resource management and land use strategies were critical to the sustainability of Anasazi communities, who inhabited environments characterized by limited water resources, fragile ecosystems, and unpredictable climatic conditions. Anasazi resource management practices included the judicious exploitation of wild plant and animal resources, the cultivation of drought-resistant crops, and the implementation of conservation measures to prevent soil erosion and habitat degradation. Anasazi communities practiced agroforestry, planting orchards of fruit-bearing trees such as cottonwoods, junipers, and piñón pines to provide shade, shelter, and food sources for humans and wildlife. They also practiced selective harvesting of timber, using wood for construction, fuel, and tool-making while ensuring the sustainability of forest ecosystems. Land use strategies among the Anasazi were informed by intimate knowledge of local topography, soil composition, and ecological processes. Settlement patterns were influenced by factors such as access to water, arable land, and strategic defense, with communities adapting to changing environmental conditions through mobility, relocation, and land use diversification. The Anasazi demonstrated remarkable resilience in the face of climatic fluctuations, adapting their subsistence strategies, settlement patterns, and resource management practices to thrive in environments characterized by environmental variability and ecological uncertainty. Archaeological evidence suggests that Anasazi communities experienced cycles of drought, flooding, and temperature fluctuations throughout their history, with periods of environmental stress exerting pressure on social and economic systems. During periods of environmental instability, Anasazi communities exhibited adaptive responses such as diversification of subsistence activities, intensification of agricultural production, and migration to more favorable environments. Resilient agricultural practices, including the cultivation of drought-resistant crop varieties and the construction of water management infrastructure, enabled communities to withstand periods of water scarcity and maintain food security. The decline and disappearance of Anasazi civilization represent one of the enduring mysteries of North American archaeology, with scholars proposing various theories to explain the collapse of Anasazi society. One theory posits that internal social and political tensions, including resource competition, population pressure, and elite competition, contributed to the fragmentation and dissolution of centralized authority structures, leading to societal disintegration and conflict. Another theory suggests that environmental factors, such as prolonged droughts, soil degradation, and deforestation, played a significant role in destabilizing Anasazi communities, undermining agricultural productivity, and triggering resource shortages. Climate reconstructions and paleo-environmental data indicate that the American Southwest experienced periods of extended drought and climatic instability during the late prehistoric period, coinciding with the decline of Anasazi civilization. Drought, resource depletion, and environmental stressors exerted profound impacts on Anasazi communities, challenging their ability to sustain agricultural livelihoods, support growing populations, and maintain social cohesion. Paleoecological studies suggest that prolonged droughts and fluctuating precipitation patterns contributed to crop failures, water shortages, and ecosystem disturbances, disrupting the delicate balance between human activities and natural processes. Resource depletion, including overexploitation of timber, soil erosion, and habitat degradation, further exacerbated environmental degradation and ecosystem instability, diminishing the resilience of Anasazi communities to cope with environmental stressors. Archaeological evidence indicates that Anasazi settlements were abandoned and populations dispersed during periods of environmental crisis, as communities sought refuge in more hospitable environments or migrated to distant regions in search of sustenance. The decline and disappearance of Anasazi civilization were accompanied by processes of migration, assimilation, and cultural continuity, as displaced populations adapted to new environments, forged alliances with neighboring groups, and preserved elements of their cultural heritage in the face of adversity. Archaeological evidence suggests that Anasazi communities dispersed and reorganized into smaller, more dispersed settlements, as families sought refuge in remote canyon alcoves, mesa tops, and river valleys. Some Anasazi groups migrated to distant regions, such as the Rio Grande Valley, the Colorado Plateau, and the Great Basin, where they encountered new cultural influences, forged trade networks, and integrated with indigenous peoples inhabiting these regions. Others chose to assimilate with neighboring societies, adopting new subsistence practices, religious beliefs, and social customs while retaining elements of Anasazi identity and cultural memory. The legacy of the Anasazi extends far beyond the boundaries of ancient pueblo villages and cliff dwellings, shaping the cultural, artistic, and spiritual landscape of contemporary society. Anasazi art, architecture, and craftsmanship continue to inspire artists, scholars, and indigenous communities, serving as symbols of resilience, ingenuity, and cultural heritage. Contemporary society has been profoundly influenced by Anasazi innovations in agriculture, architecture, and resource management, with lessons from the past informing present-day efforts to address environmental challenges, foster sustainable development, and promote cultural diversity. Anasazi cultural practices, including pottery making, weaving, and ceremonial rituals, serve as living traditions that connect contemporary indigenous peoples with their ancestral homelands and spiritual heritage. The study of Anasazi civilization raises important ethical considerations regarding cultural heritage preservation, indigenous rights, and community engagement. Archaeological research must be conducted in a manner that respects the rights and perspectives of descendant communities, acknowledges the legacies of colonization and dispossession, and fosters collaborative partnerships based on mutual respect and trust. Ethical guidelines for archaeological inquiry emphasize the importance of engaging indigenous peoples as partners and stakeholders in research initiatives, integrating traditional knowledge and oral histories into scholarly interpretations, and promoting cultural sensitivity and inclusivity in the dissemination of archaeological findings. Efforts to repatriate ancestral remains, sacred objects, and cultural artifacts to descendant communities reflect a growing recognition of the moral imperative to redress historical injustices and honor indigenous sovereignty. The enduring legacy of Anasazi civilization lies not only in the tangible remains of ancient settlements and artifacts but also in the intangible elements of cultural memory, spiritual connection, and collective identity that continue to resonate in the hearts and minds of indigenous peoples and scholars alike. The Anasazi remind us of the interconnectedness of human societies and the natural world, the resilience of indigenous cultures in the face of adversity, and the imperative to safeguard cultural heritage for future generations. The legacy of the Anasazi invites reflection on the complexities of human history, the diversity of human experience, and the importance of preserving cultural diversity and ecological integrity in an increasingly interconnected world. By honoring the legacies of ancient civilizations such as the Anasazi, we affirm our commitment to justice, reconciliation, and respect for indigenous peoples and their cultural heritage. As we chart pathways for future research and engagement, we must strive to build inclusive, collaborative partnerships that bridge the divide between academic scholarship and indigenous knowledge, fostering dialogue, understanding, and mutual respect. By centering indigenous voices, perspectives, and priorities in our research agendas, we can contribute to a more just, equitable, and sustainable future for all. In honoring the legacy of the Anasazi, we affirm our shared humanity, our interconnectedness with the natural world, and our collective responsibility to preserve and protect the cultural heritage of past, present, and future generations. As we embark on this journey of discovery and reflection, may we draw inspiration from the wisdom of the Anasazi, whose enduring legacy continues to enrich and illuminate our shared humanity.